citizen, kingdom citizen, yeah, yeah, kingdom citizen of Wisconsin. Kingdom citizen, yeah, yeah, kingdom citizen. Blessings, 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 everybody. How are y'all doing? How you doing? This is Dr. David D. King, Kingdom Citizens of Wisconsin, and I am your host of this uh, podcast. And I tell you, it has been a long time coming. We're back, and I got with me today the person who normally on the show with me, and she had to do mama duty, she had to do county supervisor duty, she had to go save America duty, she had to fight for children duty, she had to take care of her husband duty. And y'all probably saying, who is that person? It is none and only the constitutional queen. Bring her up on the screen. How are you, ma'am?
Hello, I'm doing well. I'm exhausted from all of that.
I know, right?
Yeah.
All of that. And then some.
Yes.
Yeah. So
I'm very, very grateful that God is in control. Let me just put it that way.
Yes, God, definitely he's in control, and I know that he's looking for the faithful few. He's looking for the remnant that's going to stand up for him.
And the enemy does not like it at all.
At all. And somebody is on here you need to meet.
Okay.
She is part of the my PMA Kingdom Holistic Health Ministry.
Nice.
And it is Dr. Houston. She's watching. God bless you.
Welcome, Dr. Houston. It's nice to meet you.
She's an awesome woman of God as well. So it's good for her to be on here with us. God bless, God bless, God bless. So before we go into that, I got something that I need to share with you.
Okay.
Is
this one of those bombshell things you need my reaction to?
Listen, it is. I just saw a clip. The UN had a meeting.
Oh, good.
And the United States was pushing something to the UN. Do you know what that was?
I can tell you that it has nothing to do with the well-being and the welfare of the United States. That's about it.
Exactly. They're pushing to remove the consent law from 18 to 14.
Yep.
14.
Yes, probably because their UN ambassadors and peacekeepers really love those young children. So
I know, right?
Yep.
But I ain't going to go there right now because I really want us to get into some good, juicy. And for those of you who are just watching the show for the first time, Kingdom Citizens of Wisconsin, we talk about God, our country, our Constitution, both Constitution, which is the Word of God.
All three of them.
All three. But, we want you guys to understand what we're about to be about on tonight. Mm-hmm. And we're going to start off with the election, but not the way you guys think we're going to talk about the election. What we're going to talk about is how you elect a president.
Yes.
I think that is something that a lot of people don't know. A lot of people don't understand.
Yep.
And I think we need to really, really get into understanding how a president is voted. It's not the same as a mayor being voted. It's not the same as a county supervisor being voted in. It's not even the same as a governor being voted in. And so I think this is something that people will, well, then how do? I'm so glad y'all asked because we're about to get started with this. And I'm going to turn it over to the Constitutional Queen so she can share some things with us.
Okay. I would love to know how many people actually know or actually enjoy or understand at least just the basics about baseball. Because I have a really good analogy that will help to hopefully make the Electoral College a little bit less muddy. Because unfortunately, given the state of our education system today, we don't have a whole lot of understanding of we're not actually the popular vote that is done on November 4th or the second Tuesday of the month or whatever, however you want to put that, is not to vote for a president. It is to vote for the Electoral College or the delegates to the Electoral College, who then, based on the overarching not the popular vote, but the what's the word I'm looking for now? I just lost it. See, this is why I'm so exhausted nowadays. God is good. Anyway, so it's not to take the popular vote and say, yep, this is what makes the president. It is the distribution of the vote and how that works from state to state. And so every state has electoral delegates that are sent from both sides, Democrat, Republican, right? And if we didn't have a two-party system, there would be more parties involved in the Electoral College, but we don't have that right now. So the Electoral College, the delegates for each state are what we elect on November 4th this year, I believe it is. And that is what decides the presidency. So I've got a little video. It's a short one. It's not a very long one, but it has an analogy that I hope will, again, make this a little less muddy. And I'm hoping it'll work. I'm going to share my screen. And we're going to explain a little bit more clearly what the Electoral College is, and then we can discuss and ask questions and all of that fun stuff. So give me a second to try this. Let's see, share screen. Select tab. Yep, that's the one. Okay. So, Dr. King, can you see it?
Yes, let me throw it up there for you.
Okay.
There you go.
Awesome. All right, I'm going to press play, and it's, I believe it's only about, 5 minutes or so. So it's not very long, but it's a perfect explanation. You don't even have to know that much about baseball, but it's a fun little explanation, and I hope that it will help kind of clear things up. So here we go.
All right, Brad, let's hold up a moment there before we move on, because after watching this back at home, I think my explanation there came across about as clear as mud. So let me now use an analogy that I was trying to think of back when we were there at Independence Hall. Here's the deal, folks. There are some people out there pushing what is known as national popular vote. It would get rid of the Electoral College because they say it's just not fair. They argue that in a baseball game, for instance, whoever scores the most runs wins. But in baseball championships, there are a series of games. And to be the champion, you have to win the most games, not just score the most runs. In the World Series, for instance, most of the time, the team that scores the most runs in all 7 games combined also wins the most games, but not always. Take, for instance, the famous World Series of 1960, when the Yankees scored a total of 55 runs and the Pirates scored only 27. Well, even though Mickey Mantle hit 10 home runs, 10 home runs in just 7 games, and had a series batting average of 400, and even though the Yanks were able to run up lopsided scores in games 2, 3, and 6, they only won a total of 3 games. And the Pirates won 4. So when Bill Mazeroski hit that bottom of ninth walk-off home run in Game 7, the Pirates were the champions. It wasn't the first time. The same thing happened to the Yankees in 1957 against the Braves. It happened again in 1964 against the Cardinals. But don't feel bad for the Yankees because you never feel bad for the Yankees, but also because it goes both ways. The Yankees won the 1962 World Series against the Giants, even though the Giants scored more overall runs. In fact, out of the 260 Major League Baseball playoff series, and that includes the World Series, the League Championships, and the Division Series, the team with the least runs in the series has still managed to win the most games 40 times. That's 15% of the time. 15% of the time, the team with the least runs wins. Yeah, and that happened as recent as the 2002 and the 2003 World Series, and just last year in the American League Division Series between the Tigers and the Yankees. Now, the simple-minded will run to their mommy crying, "It's not fair, it's not fair." But the thinking American will step back and ask, why is it happening this way? What's the reason for this? Then they will discover that it's because baseball is designed to make sure that the champion isn't a team that did well against just one particular pitcher or in one particular stadium, but the champion has to be able to play well in a variety of situations, hitting well off of multiple pitchers, playing great defense, being able to not only hit home runs, but bunt and steal bases and win the close games as well as the blowouts. That's what makes a champion. Our founders created an amazing way to accomplish the same thing in our presidential elections. America's president has to appeal to a broad range of Americans from across the fruited plain. It's not enough to be popular in the big cities and run up the score in just 1 or 2 games. You have to also be able to win enough votes in the other stadiums or states, if you will, in order to win enough games to win the whole championship, or in this case, the presidency. For instance, here you see the map of Bush-Gore in 2000. Obviously, Gore won the big cities. You can see where the blue is on the map. But Bush won the rest of the country. And the rest of the country was a better distribution of the vote. Here we have the 2004 Electoral College results, where you see Bush winning more stadiums, more states, if you will, and some of the big ones as well. And it added up to a total that was more than what Kerry got in 2004. So it was like winning 4-3 in the World Series. 2008, Barack Obama was able to do the same thing. He won more of the distribution of the votes across the country, and he won more of the actual votes. So this was one of those situations where the person that scored the most runs also won the most games. It's not a perfect system, but it is sure better than any other, and it is much, much better than the national popular vote. The Electoral College has served our nation well, and if Americans are smart, we'll keep the World Series of politics by keeping the Electoral College. Now let's get back.
Play ball!
All right. What did you think, Dr. King?
Very interesting. I mean, and it's truthful. I mean, and I think a lot of people does it because they don't know politics.
Yeah.
And you look at, and the baseball analogy is good because if you got to play 7 games and you might outscore me 3 out of the 7, and I might win game 1 2-1, game 4 4-3, and my score is low. But I won because I won more games.
Exactly.
And so when you look at the popularity votes, you might win the popularity votes, but lose college electoral votes.
Yep, it's all about the distribution, right? It's all about the distribution. How many states do you win versus how many people voted? And that's the thing we got to remember. The states have equal representation across the board. That's why we have the Congress, we have the representatives, the House of Representatives, and we have the Senate, right? Because we want equal representation. We want to distribute that power so that it's not all concentrated in, like he said, the big cities, right? If we went to the popular vote, I can guarantee you not another conservative would ever win in any elections.
Right.
Because the problem being with these national elections is that the massive cities are largely Democrat strongholds. There are hundreds of millions of people in these massive cities. So if we just took the popular vote, those massive cities would have far more influence and far more ability to make be the kingmaker, if that makes sense, right? They're the ones, they would have the deciding vote. So then all of those people who are spread out in those rural areas, they're not as highly concentrated, but they're spread out in those rural areas, the whole Midwest, right? Those people would lose all representation in these national votes. And so that's why we cannot look at this November 4th election as it's the popular vote. That's not how it works.
Right.
We're deciding, each state is putting forth their votes, they're casting their ballots, and then each state is deciding who they feel is the best choice for president. And then every one of those states has equal representation across the board. Now, equal representation meaning they have the same amount of electoral delegates per capita, basically, right? Per however many people are spread out in for each delegate. So that's why California, which has, you know, several million people, or several hundred million, I don't know how, I'm not even sure what the population of California is, but they have more delegates that are sent to the Electoral College, but that is spread out across the entire state. So, you know, Wisconsin or these rural states don't have as many delegates, but they have equal representation because they represent a more spread out portion of the country, right? And so that's why we cannot. And here's what he says in there is that if it was the popular vote only, we would see presidential candidates from both sides basically campaigning in massive cities. They would never come to places like Black River Falls, Wisconsin, or even La Crosse, Wisconsin, right? Because those places would not give them enough votes to overcome the popular vote.
And they definitely won't go to Whitelaw, Wisconsin either.
Oh, no, not at all. So the people in the rural areas, the people who are more widely distributed, would have absolutely no say in the presidential elections. And so when we're talking about destroying the Electoral College, and he said it's not a perfect system. Obviously, there is no such thing as a perfect system. There are going to be people who fall through the cracks. Oh my goodness. There are going to be people who don't get represented equally, but that's not the ultimate outcome that we're looking for. We are looking for equal representation, but we're looking for it across the states, not across every individual person.
Right.
It does not mean your vote does not count. Believe me. Because your vote is what's sending those delegates to make that decision for the country.
Exactly. And one of the things, the reason I wanted us really to talk about this is because on both sides, okay, people don't know politics.
Exactly.
So they'll say, oh, somebody stole. But wait, how can you steal? Now watch this. If the Electoral College vote is the one who decides who's the president, how can somebody steal an election? They might can steal more votes in the popularity, but they can't steal that election if it's done by the Electoral College votes.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Now, and so this is something that I think is good that we share. And the reason why, so if either side lose, we don't see a riot because they didn't understand the election.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Oh, they stole it because she's a woman. Oh, they stole it because it's him. No, you guys got to figure out who is the Electoral College delegates.
Yep.
Right? And then that's who make that decision.
Yep. And they're not going to make the decision contrary to the will of the people within the state that they represent, right?
Right.
We have a very strict set of laws governing how the delegates work. Now, obviously, we saw in the 2020 election just the craziness of several states actually sent 2 votes, one from each party, up to 2 electoral slates up to the House and the Senate, right? Because they were like, we're not entirely certain this election was based on integrity. We're not entirely certain that the person who, supposedly won actually won. And so they sent both slates of electors to cast their ballot. And the one slate of electors was obviously not heard. It was dismissed. Now, the Congress has a lot of power to do that. There's, we could dive into the, is it constitutional for the vice president to, overturn one slate of electors in favor of another if he feels that there's a need for it. There's a whole bunch of different conversations, but we're talking about the Electoral College. We are voting for what?
There's a question.
Okay. Oh, hi, Rosie. So they're responsible to vote according to the majority vote in their state. So when we're talking about the national popular vote, that is taking the national vote across state lines. The Electoral College has representatives, has delegates from each state, and the delegates from, we're going to just say an example, Wisconsin, have to vote based on the popular vote within their state, right? The majority vote within their state. Mm-hmm. They can't make a decision based on what California says, or based on what Idaho says, or based on what Massachusetts says. Wisconsin has to make the decision based on the will of their people, right? So when the Constitution says we the people, it kind of should have said we the states, because it was a larger representative of individual groups of people. And that's why this overreach in all of the different governments on the federal and state level is really causing a lot of damage to individual states' rights, because we're no longer getting that representation on many levels of government. So yes, in one sense they are supposed to, but they're supposed to make the decision to vote according to their majority vote within their state. Wow. Each electoral delegate is given the vote for their state, right? So that's where the confusion comes in. It is based on popular vote, but only within the boundaries of their own state. Oh, you're muted.
Okay, so I'm good, because I just gave I didn't give it to her. She took it because I was pulling it up. The Electoral College votes, right? Because mm-hmm. I'm also going to share some of that on the radio show, because again, I don't want people to be tricked, fooled, or bamboozled, mm-hmm. because they don't know politics and they don't know about the Electoral College votes, right? Yeah. They don't know this, and a lot of people don't talk about it, right? They just tell you to go out and vote. Then they holler, "Oh, they cheated." Wait a minute. Do you understand how it works?
Yeah, I mean, you hear it, and it's spoken of all the time. At November 4th, we the people decide, I'm sorry, November 5th this year. Yeah, my dates are all confused. Forgive me. November 5th, we decide. I'm just gonna check that just to make sure, because I don't want to tell anybody. Yes, it is the 5th. It is the first. I'm working as a poll worker that day, so I should know it. Anyway, right. November 5th. The media, everybody tells you, the politicians say, you decide on November 5th, you the people, we the people, right? We decide who the president is. And that is not true, because the Electoral College doesn't even meet until December. And they cast their ballot then. So we're voting for the delegates who are going to be going to cast their vote in December for the president. So yes, again, they are representing the people, but they're representing it in a distributive manner, not in a popular vote manner across the state lines.
Yeah. So, and that's something that I think we really got to know, we got to understand, because remember when Al Gore and George Bush, right? Yes. Mm-hmm. Donald Trump and Clinton, right? Yes. People were like, "Oh my God," But no, the thing about it is, if you never know the process, then I can trick you into believing a lie, and make you go crazy on something, because you don't know the system. You don't know how it works. You don't know how it plays out, and we can tell that people don't know politics, because when it goes to local races, you don't get a turnout.
Yeah.
Because they don't realize that those local races are the most important race.
Yeah.
And so with the president race is so unique that we just looked it up today, and there was a couple of people that became president based off of the electoral votes, even before Al Gore and Bush.
Yeah, versus the popular vote. So one side getting the popular vote more, and then but the other side, because of the distributive nature, got the actual got the vote. Yeah, and that's the thing. So this is the thing that is so disturbing, because of this mindset that this is what we're doing. We, the people, are voting for the president on November 5th. We don't have that idea of there are multiple layers to this. There are separations of power, right? And we don't take that into consideration when we're going to cast our vote. And so, we're telling people to go vote for the president, but we're not making it clear we're voting for the people who are going to represent us going into that election in December. And so we've lost the nuances, we've lost the layers of how the Electoral College, how electing on a national level versus a local level or even a state level, those are completely different things. And there's a reason for that, because we need a president who is going to represent all of us, not just one major state or several major cities, right? We need a president who across the board is going to be going into these rural areas. There's going to be into the cities, who's going to be going into all of the different subcultures and groups that our United States are, right? When they first started talking about the United States, it was these United States. It was not the United States, right? There's a huge difference in that. These United States was still making it clear that the states themselves were sovereign and they were the parent of the federal government. And because we flipped that on its head, we've got ignorant people who for 4 years were insisting that Donald Trump had lost to Hillary Clinton because she got the popular vote. And then 4 years later, we're insisting that Donald Trump was a terrorist and a insurrectionist because he knew that something wrong had happened with our election system. So there is such a breakdown of integrity and truth, and if we don't understand what these nuances to our electoral system are.
And that was the same thing that happened when they thought Al Gore won. They were like, oh my God, Al Gore won. And then all of a sudden they was like, wait, what happened? No, didn't cheat. You guys didn't understand how the system works.
Yes.
And one of the founding fathers, and I love using his quote, says, knowledge will always govern ignorance.
Yep.
So if I can keep you ignorant, I can always govern you.
Yep.
And so when we look at it, J. Rod is in the house.
Hey, Jared.
I know, right? He ain't said nothing funny today. He ain't said nothing. It's coming, though. I know it's coming.
Points to the person who knows that quote that Dr. King just said. Who is the founding father?
Should I say it, or are you gonna see if somebody know?
I want to give them like 30 seconds just to see if they know. We can keep talking, but 30 seconds. Think about who just said that quote. Knowledge will always govern ignorance.
Yes, y'all come on and tell us who said that, because the thing about it is, even the Bible says, "My people perish because of lack of knowledge."
Yeah.
But it didn't stop right there.
Yeah.
It says, because you have rejected knowledge.
Yes, exactly.
Because you have rejected hearing truth, because you rejected the information, like the information we're giving out about, this is why we perish, because we was trained not to listen to any new information if it didn't come from CNN,
MSNBC,
NBC, yeah. There goes The answer. Did you see it?
Yep, I saw it. You are correct, Dr. Houston.
Yes. But
Yes,
the
it was James Madison.
but the thing about it is, we was told think like everybody else or else. But when we was trained as a kid by our parents, they would say, if your friend jump off a bridge, would you jump off that bridge too?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? In other
Mhm.
words, think for yourself. And
Yeah.
I really believe that if people just take time to go look at how do you can Google it. It tells you, just Google, how do you elect the president?
Yeah.
And then it will break down what is electoral college votes. It'll let you
Mhm.
know. Then
Yep.
you're going to want to know, who is my delegate? Now, because it's starting to break it down, right?
Yep.
I remember, like I heard a gentleman says that the 3/5 clause was in the Constitution, that a black man was 3/5 of a man.
Nope.
And I'm sitting there like, okay, they don't know the truth of the 3/5 clause.
Yep.
And so once he said it, I said, let me break this down to you because I see right now you don't understand. The 3/5 clause had to do with the censor.
Yep. With the census.
It didn't, I'm country. It did not do it had nothing to do with a black man being 3/5 of a man.
Yep.
It was allowing the slave owners to only count 3/5 of their slaves for
Yep.
the censor.
Right, because the point was is the slave owners were insisting that these slaves were property and not human beings, right?
Right.
But then when it came time to wanting more representatives in Congress to influence government, they're like, oh, well, we can count them as people for that, right? And the northern states were like, no, because we're never going to get rid of slavery then. And so they said you can't have it both ways. They are either fully human and fully engaged in the political process with us and should not be owned by other men, or they can't. We can't count them, and we cannot have them be represented in our government. And so they compromised in order to say, okay, we will give you this much and no more. And it was supposed to, one, keep the southern states as part of the union, and two, also make sure to restrain their power so that the slavery would eventually be demolished. And yeah, so you miss out on so much when all you hear is 3/5 clause. That means they're only 3/5 of a human.
Right.
It had nothing to do with their humanity.
Even back then, they wanted it. They wanted it both ways.
Yep.
Right. And
Yep.
then now they say my body, my choice.
Mm-hmm.
But then when the pandemic was here, and you didn't have a choice, you're supposed to take the carrot.
Oh yeah, right? It's your body, my choice, right? Then it's your body, my choice. Yeah, isn't that great? You're like, no, your freedom, your liberty, your choices end where mine begin. That's how this works.
And we sitting there like, okay, and so I'm really, really hoping that people will go and start to Google about the electoral college, how the process works, how do we choose a candidate. I mean, how do we choose a president? Thank God we under a king, because we don't have to go through this kind of stuff, because the electoral college can't choose a king.
Yep.
He was born king. So thank God that we have a king. But those like, what do you mean we got a king? King Jesus. We got a king. So
exactly.
You can't vote him in or vote him out. And so those are some of the things that I think that we need to really address. And I am looking for something. So I'm going to let you talk a little more about electoral college while I get it, because I forgot to do it earlier in the show. So Go right ahead.
Okay. I'm just going to pull up some quotes from the founders to hopefully it will maybe help to continue to clear things up and everything. I will tell you that James Madison took copious notes when they did the Constitutional Convention to write the Constitution and decide how all of these processes were going to work. I actually have the entire thing, all of his notes printed out. It is a seriously huge binder. But yeah, anyway, they talked about really how how much trouble it was to figure out how they could get their best representation across all of the states, and across all of the diversity of the people who were there. I mean, because obviously they weren't as diverse back then as they are today. We are definitely more of a tossed salad, melting pot, whatever you want to call it.
I like that tossed salad.
Tossed salad. But even back then, there was a diversity of religion. There was a diversity of schools of thought. There was a diversity of different types of employment. There was a diversity. Obviously, we had slaves back then. It was a horrible time, and it was also a hopeful time because of the way that they wrote the Declaration and the Constitution. Again, I'm going to say this over and over and over again. You cannot read the Constitution without putting the Declaration right up side by side with it. The Declaration is our why we chose to separate from Britain, why we chose to pursue this new government and to build and establish ourselves as a free nation. And then the Constitution is the how, right? It was how we were going to unite all of these diverse states and peoples together to form one union. And so that was one of the debates that they had about the Electoral College. How can we best represent it? Not perfectly, but how can we best represent everybody?
Okay, so I gotta play me. I ain't gonna say devil advocate. I gotta play me. But before I play me, I gotta pause for a moment to push this book right here. Kingdom, I need your address, Sarah, so I can send you one.
Oh, okay.
Kingdom Colonization. This book is amazing. I have been getting great reviews from pastors and people that did you just inbox me in private message?
Yeah, I just sent you my address. You asked for it.
Oh, okay. I'll take it out of there. But this book is amazing. A lot of people, and I tell people, money back guarantee if you don't learn nothing. Money back guarantee if you don't learn nothing. Now, I ordered one today. We also have them. You ordered it, Patty, on Kindle? Because we also have it on Kindle. So you can go on Kindle and get it, or you can get it by me personally mailing it to you. I want one to autograph. Where can I get it? Just text me your address and I will get it out to you, doctor. You know, you're one of my favorite doctors. I got to take care of the doctor. She is an amazing holistic chiropractor. She is amazing, you guys. And we've been telling people, y'all need to take notes. She also do AO scans and everything. So we great. So
I wish I lived closer.
I know. So y'all make sure y'all order this book, Money Back Guarantee. And we have another workshop. It's called Kingdom Colonization Workshop, November the 16th at 3:00. We having some great times with this. And those pastors that's trying to learn more about PMA, this book right here will get you to understand exactly where we're supposed to be and how we're supposed to be. So now, with that being said, let's go back because I got something that I want to bring to your attention.
Okay.
And tell me yay, nay, and then go into it, okay?
Okay.
First Amendment.
Yep.
Okay. Let's talk about the First Amendment for a minute. I know you love talking about the Constitution, so let's go there. So the First Amendment during this campaign season, how many candidates would be sued if they followed the First Amendment?
How many candidates would be sued?
Yes.
If they followed the First Amendment, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Well, no candidate?
Wait. Look at their commercials. Now, let's talk about freedom of speech for a minute, okay?
Okay.
Are we allowed to slander and then call it freedom of speech?
I see where you're going with that. Okay, so this goes back to the whole, we have freedom that have been given, that have freedoms that have been given to us by God, and he's also attached the responsibilities that go with them. So, yeah. So yes, so if they are prohibiting the free speech of others, if they are working to, I do know Kamala Harris made several remarks and mocked Christianity throughout many of her speeches. That would be a violation of the moral law that is attached to our freedoms. And so, libel and slander, yes, there are exceptions to be made for those things because they are the founders made that a punishable offense because of the fact that they are slights or destruction of somebody's reputation. And honor and reputation were a huge thing back when we had a virtuous and well-informed citizenry. Nowadays, I'm not so sure, but yes, that they would be held. They should be held accountable for those things. Yes,
right. And not only that, and the reason I said that is through that is this. And I'm looking at what she said.
Yeah, nice.
I look at it as I wish we was in the cowboy days, and you know why? Because if we was in the cowboy days, they would have to have a shootout because you slandered their name. Probably wouldn't have nobody running now because every time you turn around, you see things where I'm not gonna win because I'm a good candidate telling you what I'm going to do. I'm only going to win if I get people not to vote for you by hating you.
Right.
And that is not how the founding fathers wanted this to be set up, where we have to, okay, I got to make you look so terrible as a mom, as a wife, as a friend, as a neighbor. And here's the sad part about it all.
Yep.
The people that know you the most start to question whatever they see on TV.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah. And we are not saying that the founding fathers were perfect in this. They made these laws, and many of them were unable to keep them
themselves.
Well. So yes, so we're not saying that we had a bunch of angelic men who just stood on high and created this amazing utopia. That is not how America was created, and the founding fathers knew that. They even stated very clearly, I believe this was another James Madison quote, that men are not angels and therefore they must be governed. Men are not angels and therefore government must be restrained, right? And so so this is something we're not putting these old white guys on these pedestals and saying, yes, we worship at the altar of the founders. No, but what we do understand is that the founders had an amazing insight and wisdom when it came to, one, the nature of God and the nature of man.
Right.
And so they utilized that when they wrote out the Constitution. And that's why they always attached the rights that we were given by God to the moral responsibilities that came with it. And we have lost that. We've separated that out, and there's now no accountability. And so not only do we have rights that don't even exist, like the right to shove your nasty, perverted decisions in my face by walking naked down the street, or also we don't have the accountability that comes with, I have free speech and I need to use it well.
Right. And so the thing that I always say, we vote a president, but we don't trust him, so we put a Congress there.
Mm-hmm.
We don't hold, so the Congress hold the president accountable. We still don't trust Congress, so we got a Senate there.
Yep. We don't trust any of them, so we've got the judiciary. And then we have, and not only that, but we've also layered the governments on the state level, on the local county level, on the city level, right? School board level, all of those things. And that's where the problem has come about, that we have gone so far away from our original principles, or the original founding principles of this nation, because we do not understand why those layers have to be there, why those checks and balances have to be there, why we have an electoral college as opposed to a popular vote, right? All of these things are so lost in the annals of time and the archaic paper that we've written it on, that it now means nothing to us unless we start grasping those concepts, understanding, right? Getting understanding, getting wisdom, and getting at the application of both, and taking what we can learn and grow in, and taking that into how we interact in the public square as the ecclesia.
Yes. Now that you said that.
Was that a good transition there?
Oh, yeah, that was a great transition, because I want to share some things, and I want your comment on.
Okay.
People are putting on Facebook now this preacher who's telling the church they ain't got nothing to do with politics. They need to, stay out of politics and stay spiritual. And
a lot of preachers out there nowadays.
But at the same time, they preach the 7 mountains.
Mm-hmm.
So how you gonna preach 7 mountains? And government is one of those mountains, right? Or some people don't know it as the 7 mountains; they know it as the 7 sectors.
Yep.
So
the 7 pillars. Yep.
There's 7 pillars, the 7 sectors, the 7 mountains, or the 7 systems of the world system. Okay. Yep. So if God gave man dominion over the earth, He gave it for us, those that belong to Him, the dominion over the earth. Then why shouldn't we, as believers, get off our hind part and run for office in every level of government?
We should. and it's not even just, okay, so I will expand on that. Not everybody is going to sit in public office, but every Christ following person should be involved on some level in the public assembly, because that's what we are. We are the ecclesia, the public assembly of Christ following believers who go out into the world and take dominion. When God gave the Great Commission to His disciples, He did not teach them to just teach the 10 commandments, right? He said, teach everything God has commanded you. What did God command us from the beginning in the garden? Have dominion, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it. Subdue it? Do you know what that word means in the original language? It means enslave it.
Yes.
It means you are in charge, and I want you to partner with me in controlling and caring for and tending my earth and my universe, right? So this is why when we take that Great Commission, the church takes it and says, oh, that means we need to disciple the nations in the teachings of Jesus and nothing else. Because God didn't, they'll say, Jesus didn't talk about politics. Jesus didn't talk about education. He didn't talk about whatever other sphere they want to keep out of.
Wait. I got to jump in now. They say Jesus wasn't in politics. Jesus had a political meeting with Pilate.
Yeah, he had a political meeting with the religious leaders of the Israelite nation, which were the politics. Okay, exactly. The Israelite. See, this is the thing. We don't understand. The religious leaders in the Hebrew tradition were the leaders of their country.
Right.
They had civil government, but they also had their spiritual jurisdiction, and the church or the assembly of the religious leaders in Israel had a massive influence over the political sphere of their nation.
Now, I get kind of, let me see, I'll use my word. I get stupid sometimes, right? And I say things that somebody said to me, we are in this world, but not of this world.
Oh, Lord. Yes, I heard that a lot.
And I got stupid with them because you know what I said? I said, don't eat then. That's in this world. Uh-huh. Why are you going to work? That's in this world. Mm-hmm. Right? And they was like, well, no. You just said. So if you're going to try to use that scripture, don't eat, don't wear no clothes, don't even have a place to live, because that's in this world if you're paying the landlord, or if you're paying a mortgage, that's in this world.
Yep, you're part of the sectors of the world, and so therefore you are violating that command.
Right. Don't go to work. Right?
Yeah.
Don't send your kids to school. That's in this world.
Yeah.
Don't drive a car. Don't get a license. Mm-hmm. All of that stuff is in the world.
Yep.
It had nothing to do with that when he was talking. So I had to be David today. I had some fun with it. Okay. We had some fun with it because of the fact we so much misquote scriptures because of the fact that's what they was taught. They never went to read it. They never went to look it up. And I believe in order to really save this country, we have to do what my book, Why It's Important to Stay in the Middle from a Kingdom Perspective, chapter 4 says. We have to do an exodus from both parties, run independent. That way we only owe God, no party, and we can govern the people well by only owing God. We can govern. We can make sure we're not oppressing them in taxes. We can make sure we got the best education system. We can make sure, right? Families are taken care of. Our veterans I can take care of. Those that are dealing with mental illness can be taken care of. Right? So
because we'll from that perspective, we are taking the government that we have today and we are flipping it back on its head, and we are saying God first, family next, church and civil government, right? And then we go from there. And we have to keep that authoritative structure in its correct place. Otherwise, we're not going to understand what the division between the jurisdictions are and where they mesh, where they need to stay away from each other. That's why people say today, separation of church and state. It means we can't have religious anything in politics. This is why the church states that, because
only on election day, though. Only during election season.
They take and pastors, you will hear them use this. They will take this one sentence from a larger letter that was written from Thomas Jefferson to the Danbury Baptists, stating, yes, your religious conscience, your religious rights will be protected because the state will have no control over making any official religion for everybody. It's going to be your choice and how you worship God. And I will tell you, they were not talking about worshiping Allah. They were not talking about worshiping Buddha. They were talking about every worshiper of God is worshiping in their own way, by the way that their conscience tells them to.
Right.
And he was acknowledging that there was a God of the universe, and that he was not it, and the government was not it, and that these individual people were going to be able to stand before God someday and say, I had the right and the freedom to worship you in the way that you taught me, in the way that I felt my conscience was dictating, right?
Bishop, I will be at my office tomorrow morning. I got a meeting, so if you want to come up there and get your book tomorrow morning, you are more than welcome, Bishop. And you know, the thing that I love about it is this: the more you learn, right? The more you learn about the Constitution. And I remember somebody said, "Well, the Constitution is a racist document." And then I said, they never read Frederick Douglass' writings.
No.
Because
Of course
one of the things that Frederick Douglass said in his writings was, I came to the conclusion after studying and reading the Constitution that it is a anti-slave doctrine more than a slave doctrine.
Yep. And was it Martin Luther King who said it was the promissory note, right? For the freedoms of all people.
So yeah, so when you start to really go in, it excites you because you see so much of God. Like you say, everybody is not perfect.
Right.
But you see so much of the freedom that God gave us, not man, but the freedom that God gave us. We messed up when we went and got marriage license. We should have continued to do like marriages, ecclesiastical marriages. We should have stayed right there. Oh, and by the way, we ain't been talking in a while. I did my first ecclesiastical marriage.
Yay! Congratulations.
So it was the bomb, and
that's amazing.
And I'm anybody come to me, I'm gonna try to push them that way.
Yeah.
You know, people don't understand that marriage license didn't even come out until a black and a white wanted to get married. And
yep.
So, you know.
Yes. I know we've talked about this before, but for those who haven't heard, the marriage licenses were created by the state governments and the federal government in order to give Black people permission to get married, because up until that point, it was illegal for Black people to get married. And so the state said, well, we need to give them permission to get married. And so the government is going to hand them a license, and that will, nobody can fight that, right? Instead of acknowledging that marriage came from God and not government. Wow. And then they looked at it and said, well, hey, this is a good revenue maker. Why don't we spread out licenses across the board? So marriage licenses were a slavery document. I mean,
right.
The origins of it. It was a slave document, and we bought it hook, line, and sinker because we are not a well-informed and virtuous citizenry anymore.
Right, and this is why it's so important that we get it. And this is why I'm not saying somebody that go to church run for office. I'm saying somebody that is really connected to God and does not mind making a godly decision for everybody. This is why the Bible says, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. Why? Because they're going to govern as unto the Lord. They're not going to govern for their pockets or anybody else's pocket. And so this is why I'm urging people to get off their hind part and run for these local races. And let's educate the local, because people don't understand the foundation of our country is not the federal government. The foundation of our country is our local government.
Yep.
And so if we don't have a solid foundation locally, ain't no telling what they can do.
Yes.
So,
yeah, if we don't have that on the local level, if we don't have integrity driven, honest, trustworthy, unimpeachable people, not perfect people, but unimpeachable in that their character is the same in private as well as in public, then we lose our country. And that's what we've been doing for the last 100 years. We've been slowly bleeding out our country and losing it because we have not taken that strong stance on our local levels and built up from the ground up. And you hear all about grassroots organizations and stuff, but even those grassroots organizations nowadays are run by people on the top. Do I have a constitutional curriculum for children and youth? A lot of reading of the Constitution and the Federalist Papers. I do not have a formal constitutional curriculum, but that is something that has been on my heart and mind for several years. Wow. And it's something that I'm really wanting to create. Actually, I was just asked by a local homeschool co-op here if I would teach a civics class for them. So I've got to get my butt moving on that, because I'm having a lot of people asking me if I've got constitutional curriculum. I would suggest, until I get my curriculum underway, I would suggest going to patriotacademy.com, or is it .org? Give me 1 second. I will check just to make sure I'm not giving you the wrong.
Down south, many jump over a broom, jump over the broom. Black people, yeah, many of them did. And you know, one of the things is this: I love the ecclesiastical weddings. I love them. I love them. They come with the big Bible, you know, the big family Bible, and we write the Bible, and then you do both sides, family tree, and it's awesome. I'm loving it. I'm enjoying it. I'm trying to give people their freedom back in a lot of different areas and a lot of different ways.
Pastors are watching and they want to do that.
Yeah, pastors, if you want to learn how to do an ecclesiastical wedding, you can call me at 414-676. I'll put the number up and I'll teach you guys how to do an ecclesiastical wedding. And if you want to book, you can also call me at the same number. But
can you put up a ribbon for patriotacademy.com? I'll put it in the private chat and you can copy it.
Okay.
To put in the chat box, because this would be the place to go. They do free constitutional training online where you can sign up, register for a class, and I think it's like a 7-8 week class. And they have several different types of classes, but they do have one that is Constitution Live, it's called, and they do training on every aspect of the Constitution, and they break it down and they run through all of the Bill of Rights and the amendments and all of that stuff and how it works. So yeah, I would go there first, and then I will keep you posted on my own constitutional curriculum, because that is, again, something very near and dear to my heart.
Somebody says that is why I am running for Jackson County Register of Deed. All right,
yes.
Rebecca.
And that's an interesting one, because her opponent believes that there's no reason for Register of Deeds to be at all conservative or liberal. It should just be nonpartisan. But if you look at the conservative platform, the whole concept is that we are protecting property rights. We're protecting, the Register of Deeds is one where your values actually play into how you run your office. And so, yes, again, it's a lack of knowledge that we don't understand that even the dog catcher should be a integrity driven, unimpeachable, honest person, because they need their character actually reflects on the state of our nation. And
now, isn't it in, I think, Philadelphia books, in Philadelphia law, that you must be a believer to run for office?
There are actually several constitutions. I don't know if they've amended them or if they've just kind of ignored that for the last little while. But in the original 13 states, I think there were 9 or 10 of the original 13 that had a religious test for running for office. You had to be a Bible-believing Christian. In some of them, you had to be affiliated with a certain denomination. So here's, again, another separation. In the federal government, Congress shall make no law, right? Respecting the establishment of religion. On the state level, their constitutions kind of play out differently. They respect religion and they respect people's rights. But when it comes to running for offices, many of the original colonies, when they became states of these United States, they created articles in their constitution that stated you had to be a Bible-believing Christian, sometimes affiliated with a certain denomination, in order to actually hold a position of authority in the government. And there was nothing unconstitutional about that, because the states were allowed to write their constitutions differently than the federal government. The federal government was the one that we were trying to keep from becoming an official arbiter of what was religious, what was not, of who is God and who is not, right? Because that was the problem that they had in the monarchies and the dictatorships over in Europe, was that the state and church were so intertwined that the state ran the church. So it was always a protection for the church. It was not a protection against religious action within government.
Yeah, all right. So listen, we're going to have to do one next week too, because we got to get back on track, because we got so much to give out that we ain't going to be able to do it, or we'll be on here all night running a constitutional marathon or something, because I mean, the thing about it is when you talk with people, they just don't know.
They don't know.
Yeah.
And a lot of them don't know where to go and get the information,
Yes.
like this information right here. So
Yep.
they need to be able to go on those sites and get the information so that they would be able to comprehend for themselves
Mhm.
what is being said. So
Revenue.
yeah, so the election is next week, Tuesday. You guys remember popular vote, electoral college votes.
Yep.
Two different things.
Yep.
Don't get upset. Don't get confused. Don't say it's because they didn't want the man in because he's a felon. Don't say they didn't want the woman in because she's black. It is done through the electoral college vote.
Yep.
You guys look it up. Just Google it. Learn for yourself. Learn something new. Don't go off of what he say, she say. Learn for yourself. This is one of the reasons that I love having the Constitutional Queen on, because she always sharing something. Thank God she didn't share a book today, because I ain't buying no more books for a while. Because she will hit you with about 150 books. But you guys, it is something that we have to do. We know we need to do it. We have to better we got to prepare ourselves. We need to know what's coming down the pipe. We need to know how to prepare families, how to prepare in case of a crisis, which we know when going to come. We know that that if we don't know, they can say anything. Just like everybody shut down on a mandate because they didn't know a mandate was not a law.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, simple stuff, you know. Yep. And so we really need to know these things. And so we're going to be back on. She's going to let me know what day. Probably be after the election, but we're going to be on. We know we ain't gonna be trying to do a one on election night. Y'all ain't gonna pay attention to us. You ain't even gonna watch. And so, but we will be on one day next week. And then we're gonna continue to educate, because we got 2025 coming. So there is some local races in 2025. Then we got 2026. There's some more local races coming. We gotta get ourselves, hey, beautiful. We got to get ourselves ready for all this. Wow, she is so grown now.
Mm-hmm. We just did a college visit this last week.
Oh, wow. I know Jake got about 3 AR-15s now. So
we're working on building up our arsenal. I mean, that didn't happen. They all got tossed in the lake.
I know, right? Mine's got thrown in the trash somewhere, and I never found them. You know, I don't know.
No idea where they are.
no idea. So,
but her prospective suitors will find out where they are.
I know, right? It'd be like, hey, wait a minute, stop. Oh, I can just imagine. Before we close out, I can just imagine a guy trying to come in and talk to her, because Mama Bear will drill him like she drilled me when I was running for lieutenant governor.
Oh yeah, I'm going to make it a point to embarrass my children when they bring their prospective mates home.
That's the fun part about it, you know.
Actually, you know what? Actually, I'm training my kids to weed out the unmentionables, right? My Bella, I won't need to, because Bella's just going to be like, do you vaccinate? Do you do the carrot?
I can see her now. Do we live in a democracy or a constitution republic?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know Jesus? I didn't ask you, did you go to church?
Yeah.
Do you know Jesus?
Yep.
So, yeah. So I'm excited. Again, we thank everybody for tuning in. This is the part of our Kingdom Citizens of Wisconsin show where, Sarah, you know what to do. I'm finna put the camera on you. do you got you a quote or whatever? I know you got something.
I do, yes.
I already knew you
And I
did.
know people are probably going to go, "Oh, she's said these before." I've got two of them. One of them is a short one, and one of them is a little bit longer. But they're both so pertinent, and I really wanted to get it going. So I will start with the short one. It says, "It is when people forget God that tyrants forge their chains," and that was Patrick Henry. One of the most eloquent men during the founding era, and he understood very, very clearly what happens when we leave God out of things. And then the other one was John Adams. I know I've quoted this before, but again, it is just so relevant, and we need to keep remembering this. It says, "We have no government armed with power, capable of contending with human passions, unbridled by morality and religion. Avarice, ambition, revenge, or gallantry would break the strongest cords of our Constitution as a whale goes through a net. Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other." And that's just a reminder again. We're losing our government, we're losing our country because we have not remembered that this Constitution is only as good as the people who hold it accountable and hold the government accountable to it, right? It's only as moral and virtuous as the people who actually understand it and who step up and say, we're running for office, we're going to be involved in our county boards and our school boards and our city councils and all of that. We're going to be the church, we're going to be the ecclesia in our local governments and in our state and federal governments as well. And so just a reminder, and just that we're not looking for perfection. We're not looking for everything to be utopia. We are looking for good and virtuous people to stand up and say no more. Because if we don't, I guarantee you, we will not be running this place. We will be enslaved once again.
Yes. So I want to talk. Mine is, I'm going to quote, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you." With that being said, Kingdom Colonization. I have the book and the workbook. So pastors, if you want to do a Bible study or class on Kingdom Colonization, we have the workbook and the book, the workbook and the book. Together, they are $45, and my English teacher is right in front of me, so I got to make sure I say it correctly. They are $45. The book, I gotta keep. I'm looking at myself on screen. Yeah. The book and the workbook. It is amazing. You can also get the book on Kindle. Just look up Kingdom Colonization, and you're gonna see that 6'4" sexy man on the cover, and you can get your book. So again, we want to thank everybody for watching. Until next week, because we got to keep this going. We got to get this momentum. We got to,
yep.
And maybe while we keeping this going, then the Constitutional Queen will go ahead and get that curriculum ready because people want that curriculum. So, oh, wait a minute. Before we go, babe, hand me that book right there. Also, we have, through our PMA, we have what's called Kingdom Ecclesia Book Ministry. It is our own publishing company that we publish books, believers' books. Nice. And this book is now on the shelf. It's called The Power of Prayer by Prophet Lloyd Flowers. Book is $10. You can get this book. And then we have another book being published by Pastor JBJ. It's called the Oh Lord Jesus, hold tight, y'all.
To effectively forgive.
How to effectively forgive. But I don't think that's the name of it either.
It's not.
So she gonna get me beat up because I'm not saying it right as well.
Look it up here.
So I gotta look it up real quick because it's at the printer right now.
Nice.
And it is called one second. It is called How to properly forgive.
What's happening to that?
Okay. How to properly forgive by Pastor JBJ, The Power of Prayer, and Kingdom Colonization, plus why it's important to stay in the middle from a kingdom perspective. So I publishing company has 4 books out right now.
Wow.
So anybody that's interested in writing a book, or you got a book and you don't know what else to do with it, there's the number on the screen. Contact us and we'll get you going. So
I'll know who to go to when my Constitution curriculum is ready to publish.
Yes, we already got you. So we thank God for everybody being watching. Thank you too, Dr. Houston, for being with us.
Yes, thank you.
Brother Jake, thank you for lending me your wife again. I bet he probably said, "Oh Lord, here we go." I thank him as well. Next time we will have Amber with us.
Awesome.
We did one without her. She probably gonna bust our head to the white meat, but we will have Amber back with us too, and we're gonna talk more about Constitution, the PMA, how to be free, how to do what God is calling you to do, and we're going to put, she ain't been on the show with us, so we got to get her on the show next week, and that is Rosie King.
Woo!
But you know what? I think I'm just going to produce it. I'm going to let it be a women's show.
Nice.
She'll host. I'll let her host it with you guys, and I'll just be in the back typing and texting and going through. That's what we're going to do next week.
Sounds good.
And she says she's not much of a talker, but
As
me. But the moment you get her on a conversation she's passionate about, oh yeah, you ain't gonna be able to shut her up either. So somebody said, what did Dr. Houston say? Yes, Rosie. So she's hosting the show, Kingdom Citizen of Wisconsin, on next week. Sarah and I, once we get offline, we'll talk about what day is good for us.
Sounds
but
good.
we will be on next week. So to you guys, we love y'all. Thank you guys. And
Kingdom citizen, yeah, yeah.